good morning, and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago. This morning we're chatting all things tourism, heritage, and culture here on the island of Tobago. And as we have that interesting conversation this morning, I have the privilege and the pleasure of sitting in studio live with Councillor Tashia Burris, who is also the Secretary for Tourism, Culture, Antiquities, and Transportation. Good morning, Councillor, and welcome to Good Morning Tobago.
Good morning, Shenell, and good morning to the people of Tobago and the very, very loyal viewers of Tobago Updates. Good morning.
Well, firstly, thank you for bringing a good vibes and good energy on set this morning. You know, we needed it to get that boost to get the conversation going. Truly appreciated. Now, you have been doing a lot of work where tourism development is concerned on the island, and we remember during the beginning of your tenure, you spent a lot of time doing public consultations. How has these public consultations contributed to the type of policies that you have brought into office?
What we found is that post-COVID, you had a number of stakeholders who had needs. Some of them were very similar, but some of them were very unique to the particular stakeholder grouping. And we have been trying to navigate some of the very real challenges of being able to provide support in the places that we could provide support. So, for example, capacity building, training, technical development. Even in-house in the division, we recognized that there was a dearth of technical expertise that would be able to aid us in truly charting a course for our progress and development when tourism is concerned. So we really have focused a lot on training in-house and trying to empower and motivate people in-house to become passionate about the sector first, because we can't motivate people on the outside if we ourselves on the inside are having struggles, becoming passionate about what we do on a day-to-day basis. What I've found is that, there are varying attitudes concerning the tourism sector in Tobago. There's a group of people who are so very passionate about the tourism sector, passionate about welcoming our visitors, passionate about providing the kind of out-of-world experience that Tobago has become known for. And then there's a group of people who are generally apathetic towards tourism and what tourism does for our economy. And what we have to do is just kind of find a midpoint. How do we get all people to understand that tourism is all of our business, where it doesn't matter whether you are a taxi driver, or whether you're working in a hotel, or the owner of an establishment, or you're a child in school. The reality is that we are competing on a global stage, and that's what Tobago has to understand. Our competition is not Trinidad. Our competition is not just the Caribbean, but we are competing on our global stage. So how are we looking at our products? How are we looking at our services? How are we looking at our service and getting people in the right attitude to give the best kind of service? And people have this viewpoint that tourism is about big, expensive, shiny buildings and, something that looks like Dubai or looks like Miami or looks like New York. But I can say that the tourists that love Tobago, the visitors that love Tobago for its very, very pristine, unspoiled kind of paradise nature. And how do we ensure that what we are creating gives them that experience that they look for, shows them that we live where they vacation, and that is taken in the fullness of what it means. So that people need to understand that in terms of product, service, wherever they may come from, whatever stakeholder group they are a part of, it's recognizing that we have something that people want. How do we package that product to get to the people that need it to get to it, as well as the fact that how do we continue to look for continuous improvement?
Right. And in the beginning of your tenure, you also dedicated a significant portion of your budget towards strategic planning.
Yeah.
And there was a tender that went out for a strategic plan. So where are you with that?
Well, we're actually looking to the IDB with some technical cooperation so that we have brought in some expertise, because that's one of the meetings that the Chief Secretary himself spearheaded in the beginning of this administration's tenure, ensuring that we were linked with different organizations to come in and to be able to provide technical support to ensure that we were going on the right direction. So we are working closely with the IDB at this time in terms of technical cooperation. It may mean that we will, at the end of that process, have to take back out that strategic planning tender, but it may have some changes because we've had to do some introspection. We've had to do some internal studies. Right now, we have some studies going on with respect to economic analysis of the tourism sector, airlift, opportunities for airlift for destinations such as Tobago and some other areas that are very critical for us to be able to have that robust strategic plan that falls in line with this administration's mantra of the greatest little island on the planet and stimulating development development, economic development on the island. So we don't want a situation where the tourism division is doing one set of work, but it's not aligned with the general work of the THA, the general work of the Office of the Chief Secretary, the general work of the Division of Finance, the general work of the Department of Planning. So it's a whole of THA approach, not just about strategic planning at the level of the division, and there's always strategic planning going on because there's an operational aspect to strategic planning as well, where we're looking at the day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month activities of the division. But what is the longer-term goal? What's the longer-term strategy? How do we move our tourism sector from where it is now to where it needs to be, in the context of all of the other progressive sectors that exist on the island, the financial sector, the agricultural sector, and what are the linkages that exist between all of these sectors. So it's not our intention to work in a silo. It's not our intention to just write a document and it just works for the Division of Tourism and we have it at our chest and we don't know what's going on in our sister and brother division. So it's really an approach that we look at where we think and we believe that tourism affects all sectors. So how do we establish those linkages between divisions? How do we link our planning to the general planning that is taking place at the level of the THA? And how do we now have this comprehensive document that speaks to all of the progressive sectors on the island?
Right. And a couple millions was dedicated to the actual planning process, right? So was that tender awarded to a particular team that started to work on it? Then during the work, you all realized that, okay, we need a bigger approach. We need a THA-wide approach to our planning. Because when you start the planning, you realize, okay, as you indicated, we need that integration of all the sectors. How did that shift occur from having the tender out for a strategic plan that cost a lot of money to now deciding, okay, we want the IADB involved and we want to expand it to an entire THA-wide strategic
So the idea was to stop that process. So that process was stopped. So no money was spent in terms of the award and putting it out and having somebody come on board and start the work. That work never started because we realized, as I said, that there was a challenge that we had to overcome before we invited somebody external to the organization to come in and help us with that strategic planning process. Because part of what it would have entailed was having our staff onboarded in a particular way. And as I said, recognizing that there are other actors in this space that we would have to engage as part of that process. And understanding that we ourselves were not ready yet for that part. I mean, it was very ambitious for us to get out very quickly with a strategic plan because it's post-COVID and we feel like okay, now is the time for us to put this plan in place because we're coming out in a big way. But understanding truly that COVID did a number on the tourism sector, and it was not just on a surface level. We had to take a deep dive into what the challenges were, and these are challenges that we face on a daily basis. And some of these things are not within the remit of the TH or even the division to be able to solve. So things like forex challenges, that's something that the THA as an institution cannot solve. When you talk about access to credit, that is something that the THA in and of itself is not responsible for, because we're talking about actors that are external to the tourism sector who have a lot of input into how the sector is run. So having a true understanding of the picture of where we're at in the Tobago space versus Trinidad versus the rest of the Caribbean versus the rest of the world, having that understanding allows us to walk into this process in a better place to inform what the ultimate outcome would be. And having the IDB send their experts as well, because they have a number of experts specifically with respect to tourism policy and planning, who were able to come in and help us get ourselves in a frame of mind to be able to now ensure that whomever is coming into this space to assist us with this process is best equipped with some background information, some historical data that didn't exist before I came into office, that they can now have a strategic planning process that is more robust.
Right. And while that process is taking place, what strategies are being implemented to increase visitor arrival?
So there's a number of things that are happening in this space. To be honest with you, Tobago is in a unique position as a destination because we have our largest source market right next door to us, largest source market by numbers that is right next door to us, which is Trinidad. 2 hours, 2.5 hours away by boat, 20 minutes away by plane. So that part of what we have been ramping up over the last couple of months is really selling to that domestic market, because the reality is that the domestic market exists 24/7, 365 days a year, whereas our international market is more seasonal. We get more numbers during the winter period for international airlift, and we get more numbers during the period October to April with respect to cruise ship. But that domestic market is coming into the space every single day of the week. And what we've seen is we've seen the numbers increasing in terms of the amount of people accessing inter-island transportation to visit Tobago, whether they're visiting for a day, whether they're visiting for a weekend, whether they're visiting for business or pleasure. So that part of the conversations that I've been having is getting the chamber involved, getting our stakeholder groups like the THTA to understand that it's not just about what the THA is doing, but what we can collectively do to help each other boost this market with such huge potential. So encouraging our accommodation providers to access the talk program, for example, where they have access to rebates to be able to upgrade their properties and upgrade their accommodations to meet international standards. Encouraging these same accommodations to get Green Key certified. Encouraging our reef boat operators to get Blue Flag certified. So it's a combination of marketing, as I said, ramping up our marketing in the domestic spaces, and we've spent a significant amount of investment in our events tourism industry, where we've had a number of events over the last couple of years in particular to drive visitor numbers to the island. And then on top of that, looking at standards and regulations. Tourism is still a highly unregulated sector, but how within the Tobago space can we encourage people to get on board with the standards that do exist? So I did make mention of Green Key and Blue Flag. And definitely, as I say, having people to understand the business of being in the business of tourism. It's not a hobby, it's not I feel like doing it today and next week I don't feel like doing it again. It really is understanding that you exist to serve the needs of the visitors that come to your doorstep, and not looking at it as a job of servitude, but a job of service. So how are we ensuring that our infrastructure is up to mark? How are we ensuring that our services up to mark, and really kind of getting people to understand, and I could tell you that one of the things that psychologically happened because of COVID, there was an air of instability in the space. A lot of persons were affected personally by the shutdowns that happened, and the tourism sector was the hardest hit, and some of those persons lost jobs that they never went back to. Some businesses closed and they never reopened. So that a lot of people felt, and this is information that came to me directly, a lot of people had this fear that the tourism sector would not bounce back, that it's not something that they can depend on. So everybody started looking for a government job for stability. But the reality is that the tourism sector has surged past in terms of people traveling. We have surpassing numbers worldwide since 2019, and now that we're fully reopened, it's an opportunity for Tobago to now take full advantage of all the opportunities that are there on offer.
Right, and for a long time we've been going to trade shows and representing Tobago and utilizing particular international marketing strategies, but have we begun to tap into strategies that include the utilization of global influencers, especially travel influencers, because they say insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And we're seeing where countries like Barbados and Jamaica and even St. Lucia of recent have invested heavily in influencers that tend to use their platform, use their audience to bring a lot of tourists to the island and just, kind of put us on that global stage. We saw that St. Lucia's Carnival, now everybody's talking about St. Lucia Carnival since, Haley and Chloe, the sisters who, saying they were there over that carnival period. And now all of a sudden everybody wants to go to St. Lucia for Carnival. We have Tobago Carnival coming up in October. Are we thinking about bringing any influencers here?
Oh, I wish I had the budget for that. Everything starts and ends with money, unfortunately. So we're not there yet. But certainly we want to build a product that people feel that you can't help but invest in this product. We're only in year 3. And, from a very authentic, organic place, there's only good things that people say about the future of the Tobago October Carnival. And the fact that this is a carnival that feels like no other, and that Tobago is a destination that feels like no other. And we are tapping into those organic feelings, and we're tapping into that natural growth of the product as the years go by. How do we continue to innovate? How do we continue to get private sector involved and for private sector to see the value of this product? How do we continue to build the capacity of the actors in this space? Because there's going to be a point in time that the government is going to excise itself completely from this product and hand it over. And we want to be able to be ready to hand that product over to a group of persons who are ready to take it up. So the same way that you have Spice Mass Corporation, the same way that you have different entities throughout the Caribbean who are charged with the responsibility for truly owning and managing a carnival product, and not just managing it for a particular period of the year and then you don't hear about it until the time comes next year. But carnival is a year-round enterprise. And how do we approach this carnival product as a year-round enterprise? I'm glad you mentioned the use of influencers, because we had started in the first year, we started using local influencers. So every year we've had some aspect of use of local influencers. This year will not be different. I would hope that we will get the kind of monies that would allow us to be able to invite some international influencers, but we're kind of also depending on very good reviews, very good word of mouth, very positive, solid reviews from our visitors to really drive people's interest to come to the destination.
Right. And what about those individuals who might not be looking for a big budget to come, but they're just looking for that type of accommodation? They're looking for the experience to even build their own platform.
Right. Well, certainly we are open to things like that. So definitely we have a small marketing core group that is looking at all of the aspects of how do we sell this product. And they are the ones who you can reach out to the Tobago Festivals Commission Limited, and anybody who's interested in coming on board to sell and promote the Tobago October Carnival. If there are synergies there that we can take advantage of, if there's a natural relationship that could be formed, because certainly I believe that we have to be able to be very adaptive to what's happening in this space. And if it is that now is the time of the influencer, and there will be a period of time that people will be following the work of influencers, and definitely buyer power is being influenced by the presence of a particular set of persons in this space, definitely that's something that we would want to take advantage of. So if there's anybody out there who feels that you have the reach and that Tobago October Carnival is up your alley in terms of something that you would like to experience and share with your followers, definitely we would want to have a conversation with you.
And I want to touch a bit on the NCC, the National Carnival Committee. Now, in the first year, they would have made comments regarding not being engaged. Have you forged a relationship with them to help to expand the Tobago Carnival in this 2024
We have started some conversations with the NCC through their new CEO. The door was never closed to the NCC, definitely. In the Tobago space, I am one secretary that loves to allow our homegrown Tobago talents to be able to be the ones to lead the charge in how do we develop our different products in the Tobago space. And there's always a role for the NCC in terms of guiding, in terms of technical support, in terms of capacity building, and that door is always open outside of a carnival season, because if you're building an industry, you need to ensure that the persons in the space are well equipped to be part of that ecosystem that you are building for it to be successful. So we continue our conversations through the CEO. She has been very accommodating of our questions thus far. And I mean, we just look forward to continuing to engage them to see how they can assist us. And we've not closed the door to any type of assistance that the NCC can provide.
Exactly. All right. No problem. Well, we're going to take a quick break right here, and we'll be back right after this. See you soon, guys.
It's a brand new morning. It's a brand new morning.
Good morning, and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates. We continue our conversation with Councillor Tashia Burris, who's also the Secretary for Tourism, Culture, Antiquities, and Transportation. Now we're going to chat a bit about the Tobago Heritage Festival 2024. But I should have asked you in the beginning, how has it been working with Niall George as your new Assistant Secretary? We forgot to mention that earlier.
Yes. Mr. George brings a special, what's the word? The same way how I walked in this morning and I was kind of humming and psyching you up and getting us motivated for the interview. Mr. George has brought a kind of special, what do I call it? just this special vibe to this space. He has this very, very blunt and very honest way of approaching anything that he does. Definitely has been very open to all the opportunities to learn and, you know, be immersed in the culture. It's not something that, in terms of all of the aspects, because if you don't know his background, he comes from learning of tambourine and these kinds of things. So his grandfather was a very famous tambourine player. And so that is his cultural, you know, navel string. But all the other things, you know, he's taken it to it like a duck to water, I should say. And definitely brings his own brand of excitement and, you know, to the space. So I'm very happy to have him on board, you know, very committed to showing up, especially for all of the events. It could get very tiring when you're trying to juggle being in the office and then having to do events after work. And he's been very, very, you know, very available to show up, especially in the places that I myself aren't able to show up. So, you know, we're just trying to work as a tag team. Getting the work done. His particular focus is not just culture, but also community tourism and sports tourism. And he has a very serious, you know, interest in development of the sports tourism sector. And that's something that I really want to give some support to him to do this fiscal year.
Right. And in terms of integrating your projects and working cross-sectionally with other divisions, you said that you have that community tourism as well as sport tourism. So some of the divisions that you have been working directly with to
community
achieve
development and sports and settlements, and under the rural development unit, we have some projects that we want to start doing in the rural part of the island. And definitely having that relationship with my colleagues at community development, youth development and sport. I'd like to say a special good morning to Assistant Secretary Wayne Clark. I call him my Deputy Assistant Secretary because just as how Mr. George has been by my side in all things related to the heritage this season, Mr. Clark particularly has made it his business to also show up, and I must thank him for always being there and present to support anything that the division does. But, you know, those relationships are very important. The Division of Education, I just had a very, very robust meeting with the Secretary of Education last week, and I'm very excited for some of the initiatives that we'll be rolling out this fiscal, because we recognize that there's not enough to go around. There's a very limited pool of resources that exist in Tobago House of Assembly, and we all dream big. We all have the grandest plans for the greatest city island on the planet. And any one division could use all the money based on the amount of plans we have. But the reality is that I don't envy the Chief Secretary, I don't envy the new Secretary of Finance, because everybody's coming like this and say, look, this is critical, this is important, this is priority. So what we recognize is we get further faster if we are collaborating. So there are some areas where there are natural overlap in the work that we do. There are some areas that we now purposefully come to the table and we bring our resources to the fore to be able to get success together, because it's not just about singular success. It's about a whole of THA approach to every single challenge.
Right, and that was going to lead to my next question. How important is it for you and any secretary, but particularly for you, when it comes to having those big events like the Tobago Heritage Festival, to get the support and the backing of your colleagues? And as opposed to it being, okay, well, the Division of Tourism is handling the Tobago Heritage Festival, how important is it for them to take it as their own as well, even though it might not be their division having it? You know, just as you indicated, Ms. Wayne Clark, he has taken it on as well as though he were your assistant secretary. So how important is it for your colleagues to
well, it's there, you know, the support is there because, you know, they are area representatives first. So they prioritize their respective districts. So whenever the heritage bandwagon rolls into a particular area rep's district, you see that support, you see them helping to bring together the people in the communities. And the portfolios are heavy. They have to deal with their districts, they have to deal with their divisions, they have a million things going on. So that who is able to show up does definitely show up and support. But I am appreciative of the fact that they certainly ensure that their districts show up, because the idea of the Heritage Festival was really a tool to bring communities together. It was never about the glitz and glamour of money spending, and that it was never created to be that. It was created to be an opportunity for every person, every community in Tobago to understand, where do we come from? What are our stories? What are our traditions? What are the things that we hold near and dear? And every year, once a year, we take an opportunity to stop what we're doing, to remember the good things, and to pass on the value systems and the things that make us who we are, proud Tobagonians of our. We have so many stories to tell.
And we hear nothing but good reviews from that Roxborough Heritage presentation of the Belmont riots.
Definitely.
Tell us a bit about what went it. We know that you are not on the planning committee. You are not sitting there and planning what show is going to come after the other, but it comes to your desk for review, right?
I could tell you what was the process. Because we've had 3 incarnations of the festival since I've been in the chair. And we inherited a model that focused largely on the glitz and glamour. Heritage used to be a very expensive undertaking for the Festivals Commission Limited. And when I've looked at previous budgets for the festival, $11 million, $10 million, $9 million. But when you see where the spend was going to, the spend was going to almost the fringe events and not exactly the events that were taking place in the communities. But even when you examine the community budgets as well, more than 50% of the arts was going into infrastructure. So you really weren't seeing the spend being directed into the pockets of the people in the community or into the pockets of the suppliers in the community. You found that for a lot of the events, external suppliers were being engaged to come in and set up and do all of the things. And that was not the idea. The idea was that a community owns its production, which means that you own every aspect of the production. So the person who is supplying the chairs should come from the community. The person who is setting up the stage should come from the community. The people who are working in the event should come from the community. So that was the model that we engaged this year. We gave them a budget, and I must say kudos to all of the communities that came on board. We literally asked them to make magic with $200,000 each, which is a far cry to what they're used to getting. But we had an oil spill this year. We have had a lot of challenges in terms of financing, so that we didn't have the amount of money to spend as we've had in previous years. And the challenge that we gave them, look, we only have $200,000 per community. Can you make it work? And the people that came on board took up that challenge. And I must say that what they produced with that quantum of money has been excellent quality productions from Charlottesville to, let me start with Golden Lane. Golden Lane came back this year with Courtship Codes, and Golden Lane's production took me, I would not probably experience Courtship Codes, but the times that my father would tell me about it, how they used to court and used to write the letter and stuff, and seeing it being played out live and in living color with the Tobagonian twang, and it was such a joy to witness. And then obviously you know what Charlottesville gives, and somehow this year the heritage felt more organic, it felt more authentic, it felt more immersive. I could tell you that the visitors that came, the ones especially from the UK, because you could tell who they are naturally, listening to them talk about how they felt so welcomed into all of the productions, and how they were so blown away by what they were able to witness. And I'm saying to Tobago, we have something so special in the Tobago Heritage product. And despite all of the initial criticism that came out when the calendar came out, the planning of this year's Heritage Festival was spearheaded by none other than Mrs. Annette Alfred, who is one of our cultural icons. And it actually hurt my heart to see so many people come out with negative criticism, not giving an opportunity for us to see what the thing brings before we say what we have to say. Because I've given full latitude to the people who are considered cultural icons to put their stamp on the thing, because they know they've been there from since beginning. So people like Annette Alfred, people like Gilbert Happy O'Connor, people like the chairman of the Festivals Commission, Cindy Lou Edwards, who is a trained theatre production person, people like Miss Grace Dennis, people like Miss Cheryl Duncan. These are the people who would plan the thing. And when they presented what they came up with, there was no way that I could say no to that. Because when we talk about we come back, we have had to pull back. And the pulling back was not just from a financial perspective, because again, We had an oil spill this year. We spent a lot of money. We're still spending a lot of money to deal with that. So that everybody has had to cut down what they were able to do post that oil spill. All of the divisions have had to cut and contrive, as they've had to say. And we've had to cut and contrive with the heritage this year. And I can tell you the budget for the Heritage Festival this year has been the smallest that it has been since I've been in office. The budget has literally been $4.9 million. And when you see the quality of what we were able to produce with $4.9 million, and yes, some will argue Pembroke was missing. Some would argue that Lekito was missing. But the reality is that the Heritage Festival belongs to all of Tobago. Nothing stops any community group in any community coming together, writing a proposal, sending it in for consideration, and getting to support for any one heritage story that they want to tell. And I hope that what people saw this year increases their appetite to want to get involved. We want to see more communities get on board. We want to see more people get involved in telling the heritage stories. And one of the things that I was particularly proud of was the participation of the young people. When you looked throughout all of the productions, who you saw backstage, who you saw writing scripts, who you saw taking part in productions, who you saw leading the charge and being at the forefront was our young people, guided by our elders. And I think this augurs well for us in the future, because there's a natural pool of persons that are going to succeed us, and they're going to be guided in the right way and the right direction. There is an opportunity for us to continue to have that authentic learning. There's an opportunity for us to continue to build on the successes in our communities, because we should not just look at the Heritage Festival as a once-a-year experience, but rather how do we take some of the things that the Heritage Festival is known for and spread it throughout the year? How do we create economies within our communities coming out of the activities of the Heritage Festival? How do we look at value-added products coming out of the Heritage Festival? So, for example, Roxborough yesterday, what they essentially did was establish a heritage trail, so that somebody going into Roxborough can visit the Cocoa House. They can go to the different stops, and it may mean that we have to make some investment in treating with the infrastructure, building out the infrastructure in a way that it can have those tours taking place on a regular basis, and setting up that economy in that space to support that particular product. We're talking about Golden Lane and the story of Gangang Sarah and how we are restoring those graves, and that could now become a new tourism attraction in that space. So how are we looking at other products that can come out of a Heritage Festival product?
Right. And let's shift a bit to the tourism accommodations. Now we know that the division would have took over ownership of the Mantelote Hotel, right? Tell us a bit about where that project is now, and how does that contribute to the overall offering that Tobago has?
So the Mantle Lodge is going to be opened by the end of this month. I think that the opening date is the 2nd of August. And they are on track right now. They have hired all the staff. So there is a management contract that is in place for one of our THA entities, the IDCOT, to manage and operate the establishment. So this is not going to be managed by the Division of Tourism, but it's going to be managed by IDCOT. And there is a soft brand that is associated with the Mantle Lodge, which is the Ascend brand. So it's one of their smallest properties in their international collection. So we're talking about a second international brand in the Tobago space in the form of the Ascend Mantle Lodge. And that has 20 rooms, and really where it is situated, which is in the community of Speyside, positions that accommodation particularly for the dive market, because Speyside, aside from Buku, has some of the most famous reefs that Tobago is known for. So that accommodation coming in this space and serving that dive market is very critical at this time, because what we recognize is post-COVID, our dive business has really rebounded nicely. We have heard from our dive operators who have said that their businesses have started to recover. We have heard of the reopening of at least 1 or 2 other dive centers that had been closed down during COVID. So So we're seeing the opportunities for growth. To add to that, with some airlift that should be coming into the space very, very soon, we anticipate that we're going to be inviting more numbers of divers into the space. Definitely also Manta Lodge should not just be looked at for dive accommodation, but there's a wedding sector that Tobago is really doing some excellent business in as well. And you have persons in the space who recognize that Tobago can be one of the premium #1 destinations for destination weddings. And that is a market that we would intend to heavily put some investment into promote Tobago as a premium romance destination as well. So we are hoping that aside from just the Manta Lodge, and there's a conversation naturally surrounding the presence of the Marriott and what that would mean for the Tobago market. And I know that there's a hope by everybody that this, or a hope by a lot of persons that this project comes to fruition, because there is the belief that once one person enters the market and does so successfully, it opens the door for others. But aside from the Marriott, and I'm not sure if a lot of people know, but there's also another hotel development project that is taking place in the east of Tobago, which is the Elephant Tree Villas, and this is actually next to the Roxborough fire station. So, and on that corner where you see those buildings going up and that hoarding, that is actually a hotel development, and they're actually due to open by third quarter, I think, of next year. So there's a lot that is happening in this space when it comes to accommodation and new providers coming in this space for Tobago. And we look forward to any sorts of collaborations. One of the things that the Chief Secretary indicated very, very early is that Tobago is open for investment, and that the Tobago House of Assembly as a whole is looking for persons who are interested in engaging in public-private partnerships to do different types of development on the island, not just specifically to tourism, but any other areas that we feel that there's a gap that exists. So I'm excited to see what it gives. I'm excited that we will finally be able to turn the key and open Manta Lodge for the people of Tobago to be able to see and enjoy. And, you know, I don't just want you to take my word for it. Give them a call when they open. Take a visit, certainly have a stay, and then you could give us your feedback as to the product.
Right. Well, I do look forward to having a staycation there at Manta Lodge. I hope I can benefit from that Tobago-based discount. But anyway, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back right after this. See you soon, guys.
So be.
Good morning, and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago. That means we're right on time. Guys, we're wrapping up this morning. Unfortunately, I mean, 1 hour really does fly by fast when you're having fun. But I have been chatting with Councillor Tashia Burris, who is the Secretary for Tourism, Culture, Antiquities and Transportation. And before the camera started rolling, we were talking a bit about that Tobago Carnival 2024 promotion. And promotion has already started. Marketing has already started. However, we see carnivals taking place within the region. We had St. Lucia now, there's Barbados, Crop Over. What are we doing to promote Tobago Carnival at these carnivals?
So let me tell you, we had these, well, we never stopped marketing from last year. And we've been very purposeful every year with all of the things that we have done to try to break into this space as a new carnival. Because definitely some may argue that all of the other carnivals in the region are more mature than us. So what do we have to do differently for people to sit up and take notice of this new carnival product on the horizon? So those save the date jerseys that you know, we went out on a limb with those. But the reality is that they have been actually our greatest marketing tool, because
I always see them even when I'm in the grocery store
over the world. Those jerseys have popped up literally everywhere. And in fact, those jerseys are supposed to be on their way to the Olympics. Sometime later this week, someone reached out and said that they're traveling to Paris and they want one of those jerseys to wear. So, so the reality is that, you know, we never stopped marketing, and we always felt like even if there were other things taking precedence in this space, whether it be a Tobago Heritage Festival or some other activity, we always have the carnival near and dear to be able to promote. And that carnival is strategically placed at the beginning of our winter season and at the kind of tail end of our peak domestic season on the island.
So were people strategically assigned to wear those jerseys during the Heritage Festival?
those people decided to wear those jerseys. I think everybody loved the design, particularly this year. And, you know, everywhere I go, almost every day I see somebody wearing that jersey. And as I said, this has been one of our most successful marketing tools. So our thought was, you know, in terms of spreading the marketing regionally, because last year we focused heavily on the domestic market, and there is heavy still ramping up our domestic marketing in general. But how do we get into the regional space, and where do we go to be able to access some of the spaces that will get us in the faces of the people that we want to bring to the carnival? And so we are looking at activations in Grenada. We are looking at activations for Tobago Day at the end of the month in New York. We're also looking at activations, I think, in Toronto as well as Miami. One of the challenges, there's some challenges that exist, and a lot of the challenges have to do with, you know, being able to get funds released in a timely manner to be able to do some of the things that we want to do. And in the absence of the funds, how do we again utilize whatever platforms we have? So digital marketing will feature very heavily in us selling the carnival product and being able to sponsor those ads in the destinations that we want to see more uptake. Another thing that we have to look at is, how are people getting here? And that has been a challenge that we ourselves at the THA have not been able to solve, because we're just not even responsible for that aspect of the things. But those conversations with Caribbean Airlines continue. I've seen them put on some additional flights for the carnival in October. I've also seen some flights coming from some destinations that would not normally have flights coming out of Caribbean Airlines. And there's some new airlift that, as I said, is on the horizon. So for us, it's just building on the product.
So has there been a strategic push towards making sure that there is promotion in these islands that have the flights coming directly to Tobago?
Yes, so that we have been looking at linking up with persons in that space, because it is expensive to send people to market. That's a very, very, very expensive undertaking. So how do we get our digital ads in? How do we get our banners in? How do we get some promotional items in? And we have groups going into these space who are wearing our promotional items, who are selling the gospel of the Tobago Carnival, so to speak. And we're happy for those kinds of partnerships, because they definitely have been very helpful, and we've been getting the interest. People have been showing the interest. I can tell you that even with my last conversations with the chamber in particular, they are very particular about ensuring that the Tobago Carnival stays centralized in Scarborough. And how do we continue to sell Destination Tobago even outside of a carnival, and, as I say, spread all of the good things that could come from the presence of a carnival in Tobago.
All right. But if let's just say, for instance, we had no support, and the only support we had for carnival were members of the diaspora, or carnival would still be the best. Because when you think about how many Tobagonians there are scattered throughout the world, everywhere you go there is a Tobagonian, right? So how are we pushing towards engaging members of the diaspora, specifically when it comes to promotion? Now, as you indicated, we can't send everybody to every country to promote, but there is the opportunity to create ambassadors through members of the diaspora. So how have we been engaging them, and is that a plan for the future?
So we're starting with Tobago Day, because Tobago Day is this year, and we recognize what that event can give for Tobago. It's really our connection with our brothers and sisters who have left these shores and gone to New York and made lives for themselves and made careers for themselves. And how do they see themselves contributing to the development of Tobago? So we're starting with Tobago Day, because we feel as if we can formalize our relationships with our diaspora first in the United States, then it gives us that push to go in other places and formalize those relationships. In my first year in office, I think that was in 2022, we had some conversations with the diaspora in the UK. So we've had those two conversations, US and UK. We're also looking at the other spaces, the Toronto, the rest of the Caribbean. Everywhere that I've traveled in the Caribbean, I get the opportunity to meet a Tobagonian living in that space. So it's essentially...
Everywhere you go, there's a Tobagonian.
Everywhere you go, there's a Trinbagonian, rather, because Trinidadians who live outside also claim there to be the Tobagonian side of their heritage. So what I've seen is that We just have to formalize those connections and those channels. The Division of Tourism is not necessarily responsible for diaspora relations. That is something that falls under the Office of the Chief Secretary, but that is a natural place of overlap with respect to the work that we do. So, it's just one of those areas that we just have to formalize that communication and being able to have a point person in every space that we go.
Exactly.
Definitely, I can tell you that there is always that interest, but because there is such heavy demand for what we do in Tobago, for example, those Save the Day jerseys.
Right.
We gave away hundreds of those jerseys for Carnival last year. And then at the end, people were saying, but I want to take back for this person and I want to send to this place. And we recognize, hey, this thing has become a very powerful tool for people to communicate without saying anything.
Right.
So we will factor that into our marketing this year.
All right. And what about getting corporate sponsors on board to sponsor those t-shirts?
Definitely, we are heavy on the sponsorship because the Carnival budget this year will be decreased a bit because we know that, as I said, from the very, very early, it's not going to be a product that the THA is going to be wholly and solely funding from now until thy kingdom come. That we have to build a product that the private sector sees as a viable product, and that is the thing that gives them the impetus to come and invest. And I could already say that a lot of the conversations so far have been very, very positive. We have been engaging the Chamber of Commerce to be able to look at their membership and see how they can support and how they can gauge their membership across the seas to see how they can support as well. And definitely I'm heartened by the feedback that I'm hearing. Persons are simply very excited for the Carnival, and we want to ensure that we have long-lasting partnerships that we are building with these sponsors so that they not just see a Carnival product as something to invest in, but they see Tobago as an island worthy of investment.
In the first edition of the Tobago Carnival, I remember that there was the conversation about the big carnival entities in Trinidad kind of taking over that Tobago Carnival. But as we grow, we see the need to integrate those entities to ensure that we can increase the quality of the production that's happening here. How has that shifted in regards to bringing in those larger Trinidad entities? Because I saw even Dirty Medics, which is a pretty popular Juve band, they are having a band come this year. So how has the seamless integration of Trinidad Carnival entities into the Tobago Carnival been?
I think, listen, when the Chief Secretary said, Secretary Burris, you'll be responsible for this carnival, I'm not a carnival baby, I grew up in Scarborough. So my early memories of Carnival would be mud mass and my father taking me to town to watch mass when I was a much younger. And that first year, those conversations were very eye-opening for me because they were coming from a place of fear. We grew up seeing Carnival on TV, and what we saw was the Port of Spain depiction of what Carnival looks like. And the vast majority of us, that's what we remember. But ignoring the fact that Trinidad has many carnivals taking place in the Trinidad space at February. So you have your community carnivals in your Tunapuna and your Arima and your San Fernando, which look similar to what Tobago Carnival used to be back in the day. Suffice it to say, I know that we look at the machinery that exists in Trinidad, and it's a whole industry that exists. Private sector runs and manages a multi-million-dollar industry. And one of the things that we recognize is that one Tobago doesn't necessarily, that may not necessarily be the business model that Tobago that fits into the Tobago aesthetic, where you have these big bands with thousands of masqueraders. So I could understand the fear. What has happened, what I've seen happen, especially in the last 2 years, is that bands in Tobago have recognized, look, there are some things that we have as strengths, and there are some things that we need some assistance with. And I've seen these bands take it upon themselves to stretch their hands across the waters and pick up the phone and call and to engage on their own without the involvement of the THA. The THA never had to make a call for Trinidad bands to come in the space on one end and bring Tobago bands in the space and then have them have a networking. We've never had to do that because bands realize that there's a business behind Carnival. There's a business behind bringing a Carnival band, so that the approach has to be very business-like. so that they have now engaged the people who have been in the business for years, and they have successfully collaborated.
Right.
So one of the more successful collaborations that we've seen from the run is Ronnie and Caro and Jade Monkey.
Right.
They've been in this space since year one, and that we are seeing more and more bands entering into partnerships and collaborations on their own with Trinidad bands.
But is the Tobago Carnival open to embracing bands like Yuma?
Well, I can't really answer that question, You know why? Because where I sit, I see that there is room for inclusion. That's where I sit. But the person who might be trying to grow a Tobago-based band may say, look, we may not necessarily want this right now. Give us some time to grow. And then maybe in 2-3 years, we will be strong enough to stand on our own, where we can stand side by side with a band like Yuma. Because as I said, in Trinidad, they approach Carnival from a very business-like perspective. And what we recognize is that there is a need for capacity building on the Tobago end, and for people to see that the Carnival is a business. So that I see that there is room, but we may not just be there yet, and that the safer way to go would be for a band like Yuma to collaborate with a band in Tobago, to be able to build the capacity of that band and to get people on board more, to be able to benefit from the synergies that they bring to the space together. And then, and we've seen it work successfully. So for me, I would prefer to have an arrangement like that. But where it would be in 2-3 years' time, where it would be next year, I can't say. But definitely, I would want to encourage collaboration first and foremost.
No, you touched a bit on the airlift situation and the fact that you're trying to get more airlines to come into Tobago. What is the status of that?
So there are some things that I can't give away just yet. But I can say that in August, we will be playing host to over, I think it's 300. Trinidad and Tobago is hosting the Kappa conference at the Hyatt in August, and Tobago will be bringing over 125 of those delegates. And these are the delegates from the airlines across the world, and they are the C-suite executives, they are the senior managers. These are the people who decide where are the destinations that they want to fly. So we're going to be hosting island tours for a first group of delegates who are coming in right before the conference, and then a last group of delegates who will be there the day after the conference ends. And the idea is for them to see what beautiful Tobago is about. Many of them, this would be their first trip to the island of Tobago. They've probably been to Trinidad as a result of their travels in the airline industry, but they've never been to Tobago. And we're taking this as an opportunity. The Division of Tourism has come on board as a major sponsor of the Kappa conference, because we're not just sponsoring the tours, but we're also sponsoring the networking dinner that is going to take place on the first night of the conference. And this is how we sell our destination to these airline executives. It is more than just a PowerPoint presentation in a trade show. We are bringing them to experience the untouched, unspoiled island of Tobago.
And give us those dates again.
The Kappa conference is going to be taking place from the 22nd to the 24th of August, but our delegates are going to be in Tobago on the 21st of August and the 25th of August. So I would want the Tobago public to roll out the red carpet when you see us with these very, very important guests, because they are the ones who make the decisions about where airlines fly. In addition to that, we know that there's a new airport terminal building that's going to be open soon, and definitely the government will not make such a significant investment if we're not going to be getting planes to fly. So I know for certain that there are some very sensitive negotiations going on right now with respect to increased airlift to several destinations throughout our network, whether it be Caribbean or further afield. And once we are in a place where we can make those announcements public, we will. But definitely I can say to the Tobago public that relief is on the horizon with respect to getting direct airlift into the destination. And I'm excited for all of the partners, the new partners who are going to be coming on board to be able to supply tourists to this destination. And so that people can see that the tourism sector is a very viable sector to invest in at this time, and that we can only go up from here. With the new developments that are taking place in the space, with the training that we're offering at THTI in customer service, with all of the opportunities that are going to become available, take up these opportunities, get yourself ready to benefit. We can only benefit if we are ready.
I'm glad that you touched on the airport and Tobagonians benefiting. Are there any conversations happening between the Division of Tourism and the Airport Authority to ensure that when that new airport comes on stream, that we can guarantee that Tobagonian businesses will be benefiting?
So we have started our conversations with the Airports Authority, and they have been very, very positive thus far. They have demonstrated a commitment to ensuring that in the operationalization of that new airport terminal, that they will keep us abreast of developments in terms of when they are going to be putting out for human resource to outfit the different spaces. They shared with us some of their plans in terms of what they're going to be doing with the old airport terminal and the fact that they're going to be moving all their operations over to the new airport terminal. So that once we get that information at hand, then we will be doing some very, very strategic work to get our residents ready to take up those opportunities. So we have discussed what are the positions that are going to become available, when are they going to be doing recruitment, that kind of thing, so that we can get people prepared in advance to be able to take up those opportunities. We're not there yet because the timelines that they gave us is that the new airport should be opened about a year from now, so that we have a little bit of time to be able to organize how we're going to be assisting in terms of ensuring that a lot of Tobagonians get an opportunity to be able to access jobs at that new airport terminal.
Especially for the small businesses.
Yes.
How do they begin to prepare? Because I mean, it's going to take significant capital injection to set up a viable business in that airport, specifically in the duty-free area.
Yeah.
So would Tobagonians be given, sufficient notice to prepare themselves for those type of opportunities?
So all of that will form part of the conversations, because definitely there must be some local content there. It can't be that we're investing all this money in an airport in Tobago and the duty free is only made up of persons who do not reside on the island.
And persons who can actually afford to be
all
there.
Of that. So for us, we have a vested interest in ensuring that we can get some entrepreneurs ready to take up those opportunities. So we continue our conversations with the Airports Authority. They know where our heads and hearts are at. First and foremost with the people of Tobago, and ensuring that they are the ones who are the premier beneficiaries of all that will come from that airport development. And because we have such an excellent working relationship with the Airports Authority, they have basically indicated to us that they will help us, they will give us some information that will help us plan better to be able to get people ready. I know that even some of the banks, they have developed new products to be able to supply capital to new businesses that are coming into the tourism space. And that is some of the information that we want to make available. There are plans for us coming out of my conversations with the chamber. We want to host some conference type activities to get tourism businesses in this space. And we want to do this at a time where we have to give them sufficient time to get their businesses ready, because all of these opportunities are coming at the right time for the tourism sector. The opening of the new airport, new airlift coming to the space, hotel developments that are in trade. 2025 is going to be a huge year for the tourism sector on the island. And I don't just want people to hear my words and take them for lip service. 2025 is going to be a huge year for the tourism sector, so we have to use what is left of 24 to get our people ready. And we stand ready, willing, and waiting for the opportunity, but we are also putting it there that we will be doing some very targeted activities to get our stakeholders ready for new opportunities.
Excellent, and it doesn't get any better than that. If you are a business person, an entrepreneur, or you just have a bright idea for that new airport and how you can contribute as a Tobagonian, get yourself ready, because 2025, as the Secretary says, is an excellent year for tourism on the island of Tobago. I mean, there are so many questions that can be asked. My list is long, but unfortunately my time is short. So this morning I want to say thank you so much to Councillor Tashia Grace Burris, who is also the Secretary for Tourism, Culture, Antiquities and Transportation, for coming in this morning and allowing us to have this conversation. Now, we know we have to grab her while we can, because she's quite a busy woman, but we hope to have her back on set very soon. We want to thank you so much, Secretary.
Thank you so much.
And
very, very engaging conversation this morning.
Guys, we want to thank you so much for joining the conversation this morning. Thank you for your likes, your shares, and your comments. And thank you for all that you have been doing to make Tobago Updates the #1 broadcaster here on the island of Tobago. Have a great day, and we hope to engage you with much more conversation tomorrow. See you soon.
song.